সভা আরম্ভ করার আগে আমি খালি একটু আপনাদের কাছে উল্লেখ করে নিতে চাইছি যে আমাদের খুব আপনার জন একজন এবং নেতাজির একজন কি বলবো সৈনিক আমরা অল্পদিন আগে হারিয়েছি, কর্নেল লক্ষ্মী সাইগাল। আমি এই সবে দিল্লি থেকে আসছি, সেখানে তার জন্য আমরা একটা বড় করে মেমোরিয়াল মিটিং করেছি। তবু আপনাদের সকলকে আমি জানাচ্ছি এবং আপনাদের সকলের সঙ্গে আমাদের শ্রদ্ধা আজকে তার সঙ্গে যুক্ত করে দিচ্ছি আমাদের এই আজকের অনুষ্ঠানটি শুরু হবার আগে। All of you know, and I have seen this also, that in this part of the world we have a very soft corner for Saadat Hasan Manto. Maybe because Punjab and Bengal had gone through the tragedy of partition, and we know very well what the pity of partition means. Even as a young woman, I remember the tragedy of partition, our relatives, friends coming over from the other side, friends going over from this side to the other side of the border. Therefore, we thought that it would be indeed very appropriate if we began the centenary celebrations of Manto from this house. And as I said, I'm very happy that we have Ayesha with us today to speak on him. Last year when I was in Boston visiting Ayesha, I read a wonderful article that she has written on Manto. And at that time I told her that if you can come, we shall have something at Netaji Bhavan for him. And this summer when I was again visiting her, I found that she has edited a wonderful book on Manto. It has been published in Lahore. Isn't that so? Lahore. That's the book. Why don't you show them? Yeah, that's the book, the beautiful book. And on one side there is Urdu, and the other side there is English. It is a beautifully produced book. Again, I told her that we must have something on Manto, and please come over. So I'm very happy that we have her here today. And I may tell you, if some of you do not know, that in her private life, she is a grandniece of Manto. So that adds to the appropriateness of this evening. I think after this I should hand over to Malavika, who is here, and I'm very happy that Malavika is one of us. Whenever I want something, I call upon her and she is there. Although, as you all know, at this point of time, she has a very difficult task on her shoulder regarding the Presidency University. Thank you, Malavika, for coming in spite of all the tough time you are having, we know. So, I'll hand over to Malavika and let us all wait for a wonderful talk on Manto. Thank you very much again.
It's wonderful to be here with all of you this evening. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be asked to come here for one of its splendid occasions. This evening, we are looking forward to a talk on Saadat Hasan Manto, the most celebrated Urdu short story writer of the 20th century. Born in 1912 in Sambrala in undivided Punjab, Manto lived in Amritsar, Bombay, Delhi and Lahore. Although already renowned as a short story writer before partition, he is best remembered for his sensitive and incisive portrayal of the colossal human tragedy occasioned by the partition of 1947. His stories such as Toba Teg Singh, Thanda Gosht and Khuldo are classics of that genre. He was also the author of over 100 radio plays, film scripts and essays. His collection of plays, Manto Ke Drama, Manto's Plays, Aao, Come and Teen Aurtein, Three Women, appeared between 1942 and 1945, and in terms of plot and dialogue are early prefigurings of the genre of absurd drama. His letters to Uncle Sam, composed in the early 1950s, offer keen insights into Cold War politics and the US-Pakistan relationship that have great contemporary relevance. He transcended religious differences and national rivalries in his life and literature. Manto died in 1955. This year, as the world celebrates the birth anniversary of Saadat Hasan Manto, we are fortunate to have the very distinguished Professor Ayesha Jalal here to speak to us. Professor Ayesha Jalal is the Mary Richardson Professor of History and the Director of the Center of South Asian and Indian Ocean Studies at Tufts University. Her many books include The Sole Spokesman, The State of Martial Rule, Democracy and Authoritarianism in South Asia, Self and Sovereignty, Partisans of Allah, and jointly with Professor Sugato Bose, Modern South Asia. Her forthcoming book, The Pity of Partition, The Lifetimes and Work of Manto Across the India-Pakistan Divide, based on her Lawrence Stone lectures at Princeton, will be published by Princeton University Press worldwide and by HarperCollins in India. As Krishna Lee said, Professor Jalal is a grandniece of Manto. We all eagerly look forward to her talk, and for me, as Krishna Lee said, with much to do at Presidency, it is really a luxury to be able to come here and listen to what Professor Jalal will have to tell us. Professor Jalal.
I'm delighted to be back in Calcutta, and especially at the Netaji Bhavan. So I'm very grateful for the invitation and the opportunity to speak on Saadat Hasan Manto on the occasion of his birth centenary celebrations. It would have been, the celebrations have been on for some time, and I've been involved with them quite a lot, but it would have been quite incomplete not to have come to Calcutta and Bengal in particular to speak on the occasion of someone who wrote with such moving and such feeling way on partition. Because of course, as you pointed out, Mr. Rose has pointed out, the pity of partition is shared by the two provinces that were partitioned. I've always believed that that was where the real partition actually took place, in Punjab and in Bengal. Bombay was rife with fear and foreboding. The British had wielded the partitioner's axe. Reports of horrific bloodletting in northern India, particularly Punjab, had turned the cosmopolitan city into a battleground of real and imagined hostilities along purportedly. His decision to leave was sudden but unsurprising. His Hindu friends' relatives in western Punjab had suffered loss of life setting sail for Karachi within a few hours. As they stood on the deck of the ship sipping brandy, Jugal begged Mumtaz to forgive him. When Mumtaz asked if he really meant that he could kill him, Jugal replied in the affirmative and apologized. You would have been sorrier if you had killed me, though only if you had realized that it wasn't Mumtaz, a Muslim and a friend of yours, whom you had killed, but a human being. It is possible that my co-religionists would call me a martyr, but I swear upon God, I will leap out of my grave and refuse a degree for which I took no exam. Becoming emotional, Mumtaz explained that by religion he really meant the faith that distinguishes human beings from beasts of prey. Don't say that 100,000 Hindus and 100,000 Muslims have been massacred, he told his friends. Say that 200,000 human beings have perished. The great tragedy is not that 200,000 people have been killed. What is tragic is that the loss of life has been in vain. Hindus, Muslims who killed 100,000 Hindus might think that they had eradicated Hinduism, but it is actually alive and will remain alive. Similarly, the Hindus who murdered 100,000 Muslims may rejoice at the death of Islam, when actually Islam has not been affected in the least bit. Those who think religion can be hunted down with guns are stupid. Religion, faith, belief, devotion are matters of the spirit, not of the body. Knives, daggers, and bullets cannot destroy religion. Mumtaz, of course, is a character and narrator in the short story titled Sahai, authored by Saadat Hasan Manto. Partly autobiographical, the story effaces the distinction between fictional and historical narratives. Together with the broader corpus of his better-known partition stories, it establishes a riveting symbiosis between Manto's life and work at the moment of an agonizing historical rupture. For someone who liked to keep his ears close to the ground in order to weave tales out of facts gleaned from everyday life, Manto the individual and writer are ideal fare for the historian of partition. So this, in many ways, has been my return to partition in a slightly different vein. Through his up-close and personal picture of characters like Jugal, Sahai, and many other unnamed murderers, Manto turns short story writing into a testament of his belief that human depravity, though real and pervasive, can never succeed in killing all sense of humanity. His faith lay in that kind of humanity. What made Manto possible? Proud and prone to displays of arrogance, he had a high opinion of his talent and place in history. Manto has been likened to Guy de Maupassant, not for consciously seeking to emulate the French short story writer, but because, like him, he aimed at exposing societal ills and hypocrisies of life without losing faith in the inherent beauty within human beings. Exuding a sense of destiny that often surprised his peers, Saadat Hasan Manto made sure to leave behind an extraordinarily rich archive of insights into his life, personality, and writings. As he wryly commented in one of his typical tongue-in-cheek autobiographical pieces, it was quite possible that Saadat Hasan dies and Manto lives on. But that would be like an eggshell minus the white and the yolk. The name Manto comes from the Kashmiri word mant, meaning a stone weighing 1.5 seer, or approximately 3 pounds, and is thought to refer to what his Saraswat Brahmin ancestors were entitled to collect as rent from the cultivating peasantry. In a play on his own name, Manto commented that he was a 1-2 man who added up to 3. Saadat Hasan Manto was born 100 years ago on May 11, 1912 at Sambrala in Ludhiana district, into a Kashmiri Muslim trading family that migrated to the Punjab and eventually settled down in Amritsar. Casting a nostalgic look at his hometown, Manto started a story of 1919, wondering what would go down hundreds of freedom lovers in 1919. He wanted to remember those glory days. Forget about recent events, he wrote, and forgetting are such an intrinsic part of the art of historical narration that disentangling the two can be a very delicate and exacting exercise. The partition of India in 1947, along ostensibly religious lines, is the most dramatic instance of post-war decolonization based on an arbitrary redrawing of boundaries. The forced migration of an estimated 14.5 million people and the murder of perhaps as many as 2 million innocent men, women, and children devastated subcontinental psyches. There has been a near obsession with memory studies among recent scholars of traumatic events in modern history. Memory as a means of historical retrieval, it has to be said, has its limitations. apart from the problems inherent in selective remembering, there is memory's intrinsic and complex relationship with the knotty issue of responsibility. The issue is knottier in the case of partition, violence in the subcontinent, than the Holocaust. Instead of a totalitarian state orchestrating a genocidal campaign against a community, they were perpetrators and victims of a murderous orgy in 1947 among Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs in the midst of the abdication of all sense of responsibility by the managers of a departing colonial state. A recent tendency to romanticize memory and nostalgia and largely anti-historical representations of the past has obscured the ways in which the manipulation of memories of trauma both reinforces and advances nationalist narratives of the post-colonial state. Even when the fracturing of national imaginaries allows memories to escape the statist imprint, personal and collective memories rarely are immune from the persistence while describing the brutal killings of Sikhs in New Delhi in the wake of Indira Gandhi's assassination, and later in coming to terms attributed to religious communalism, an overarching category that I have argued elsewhere obfuscates more than it reveals. These tragic incidents have been naturalized in narratives of social conflict in subcontinental conditions as periodic occurrences whose only certainty lies in their recurrence. This raises a necessary and profoundly historical question about memory that is often glossed over. Have different memories of remembrance produced contrasting memories about social relations between religious communities? Scholars of South Asia have been exposing the tendentious and limited nature of statist narratives. The personal side, as many of you know, of the partition tragedy has been an especially popular genre of writing for a decade and a half at least, if not more. Yet while invoking the spirit of humanism, these works have also unwittingly ended up reaffirming the equation of religious difference with conflict by ascribing the pain and suffering to an amorphous and ill-defined notion of communal violence. Without in any way minimizing the trauma of 1947, there is a need to look at the other side of partition, so to speak. Looking at the other side of partition entails cutting across the communitarian morass and foregrounding the cosmopolitanism of everyday life that bound people belonging to rival religious communities, both before and after the severity of a forced separation no one had quite envisaged simply because there was no precedent for it in the subcontinent's history. A social renegade like Manto may not seem like an obvious choice for such an investigation, but his knack for plumbing the depths of the human psyche and raise ethically challenging questions makes him an especially intriguing case study. During his all too brief life of 42 years, spanning Amritsar, Bombay, Delhi, and Lahore, Manto came into contact with several people and forged some extraordinary relationships that withstood the strains of arbitrary frontiers between India and Pakistan. His cosmopolitanism can be gleaned at one level from his keen interest in Russian, French, and Chinese literature, and on another, his firm refusal to allow distinctions of religion interfere with his choice of friends. His extensive galaxy of friends and acquaintances, to name just a few, included the giants of progressive Urdu and Hindi literature, Rajinder Singh Bedi, Krishan Chandra, Ismat Chughtai, Ali Sardar Jafri, and Ahmad Nadeem Qasmi, editors of literary journals like Babu Rao Patel and Devan Singh Maftoon, acclaimed artists M.A. Rahman Chughtai, icons of Bombay film industry like actors Ashok Kumar and Sham, producers S. Mukherjee and V. Shantaram, directors K. Asif of Mughal Azam fame and Shaukat Hussain Rizvi, lyricist Raja Mehdi Ali Khan, music directors Rafiq Ghaznavi and Khurshid Anwar, not to mention the peerless Nightingale of United India and Melody Queen of Pakistan, Madam Jahan. In a series of witty and brutally candid sketches entitled Ganje Farishte, Bald Angels, on some celebrities he came to know well, Manto made creative use of his personal memory to give glimpses into the subcontinent's collective social and cultural history that have been lost sight of in the mayhem and dislocations of partition, or swept aside by the torrent of selective nationalist reconstructions of the past. He was also a diligent archivist who preserved letters written to him by literary associates as well as admirers and critics. Most of Manto's own literature, Rajinder Singh Bedi, Krishan Chandra, Ismat Chughtai, Ali Sardar Jafri, and Ahmad Nadeem Qasmi, editors of literary journals like Babu Rao Patel and Devan Singh Maftoon, acclaimed artists M.A. Rahman Chughtai, icons of Bombay film industry like actors Ashok Kumar and Sham, producers S. Mukherjee and V. Shantaram, directors K. Asif of Mughal-e-Azam fame and Shaukat Hussain Rizvi, lyricist Raja Mehdi Ali Khan, music directors Rafiq Ghaznavi and Khurshid Anwar, not to mention the peerless Nightingale of United India and Melody Queen of Pakistan, Madam Jahan. In a series of witty and brutally candid sketches entitled Ganje Farishte, Bald Angels, on some celebrities he came to know well, Manto made creative use of his personal memory to give glimpses into the subcontinent's collective social and cultural history that have been lost sight of in the mayhem and dislocations of partition, or swept aside by the torrent of selective nationalist reconstructions of the past. He was also a diligent archivist who preserved letters written to him by literary associates as well as admirers and critics. Most of Manto's own letters are not available, but his sketches and essays, I'm happy to say as a historian, fill some very important gaps. The temporal, if not spatial, immediacy of individuals and events he wrote about results in a more effective coincidence of personal memory and collective history than narrations of the past relying on the retrieval of memories several decades down the line. Manto's days in Bombay are immortalized in his own and other people's writings. The rhythms of the city, its electric cars, breathtaking ocean views, exotic eateries, foul-smelling alleyways, and curious dialects struck intimate and enduring chords within him. After entering the glitzy and competitive world of Bombay cinema, Manto had no qualms trying to find employment for struggling artists, fellow writers like Rajinder Singh Bedi, Krishan Chandra, and Ahmad Nadeem Qasmi, even before he had managed to find his own feet. You were the first to set this ball of progressivism in our literature rolling, Rajinder Singh Bedi wrote to Manto, and I'm glad you have still your shoulders to the wheel. Your transgressions of the frontiers of ethics have been extremely enjoyable, and in the Shariat of literature, they are extremely heartwarming. He welcomed Manto's criticism about his writing and was prepared to go so far as to admit that, quote, no other friend of mine has helped me emerge as a writer more than Manto. Even before they'd met, Krishan Chandra had been won over by Manto's literary talents. He was electrified by Manto's sensitive portrayal of a prostitute named Saugindi in the story Hattak, Insult, and thought it had no parallel in international literature. Impressed by Manto's broad-minded views on society and overall technical superiority, Krishan Chandra willingly placed himself under his tutelage in matters to do with films. What can I say to you, he wrote after reading Manto's film script Steel, about the dismal working conditions of industrial labor and their resistance against capitalist exploitation. In 1940, Manto managed to get fired from Bombay, where he had been working in the film journal Musawwar, which he had joined in 1936. It proved a fortuitous sacking for Manto in one important respect. Through pure coincidence, he ended up joining the All India Radio's Urdu service in New Delhi, where Krishan Chandra had recently secured employment as a drama producer. It was the onset of one of the more creative and memorable phases of Manto's life. He was no stranger to the world of radio. In fact, it could be said that the people of India came to know of Manto through radio before they really had even started reading him. Radio stations in various cities had been airing his plays and skits for the past several years. Apart from Krishan Chandra, he had the opportunity to work with and get to know several heavyweights of Urdu and Hindi literature, including Upindranath Ashk, Balwant Singh Gargi, Chirag Hasan Hasrat, and Devendra Satyarthi. Rajendra Singh Bedi also joined for a while, as did Ahmed Nadeem Qasmi. Manto did not think much of Ashk as a poet and a human being, but later helped him to get a job at Filmistan. Their rivalry proved to be productive from a literary point of view. So did the more gentle competitiveness among the others, ensuring that this phase was one of the most creative in modern literature. Krishan Chandra thought Manto wrote his best stories and plays while he was at All India Radio, but then Krishan Chandra was writing in the mid-40s and does not account for Manto's subsequent writing. Entrusted with the task of writing radio dramas and features, Manto began churning out material with lightning speed on his Urdu and English typewriters, sitting in his trademark crouching position, feet on the chair. All too conscious of his worth and supremely proud of his abilities, Manto exuded staggering confidence. He claimed that he could write on any theme under the sun. Once, while pondering over an off-the-wall theme, someone came to the door and said, "May I come in?" Manto was immediately challenged by his friends to write a play by that name, which he did promptly. On another occasion, he was called upon to produce a feature or play after a writer cancelled a scheduled program at the last minute. Manto refused, saying that even a machine needed time. Everyone begged him, and when one friend rolled up a sheet of paper on his typewriter, Manto sat down and wrote Intezar, Waiting, which is considered to be one of his finest radio plays. Things were going quite well for Manto at All India Radio in Delhi, which was a small mercy given the emotional upheaval caused by his one-year-old son's death and the mental agony of defending himself against charges of obscenity in the first case brought against him for his story Kali Shalwar by the colonial state. The situation changed dramatically at All India Radio after Krishan Chandra was posted to Lucknow. Ashk saw an opportunity to avenge Manto's demeaning attitude towards him, so he intrigued with Chandra's replacement to have parts of Manto's play Avara, Vagabond, revised. Manto hit the roof. He would not allow anyone to change a single word of what he wrote and stormed out of All India Radio, clutching his Urdu typewriter, never to return again. Manto returned to Bombay to retake his position at Musawwar. He had been offered the job in August of 1942, still mourning his son's death the previous year and as uncertain as ever of how to make ends meet. The film industry was an obvious attraction. Manto had come back to a city absorbed in the politics of the Quit India movement. One evening, Manto was, as usual, squatting on a large chair in the office of Musawwar on Clare Road, alternatively contemplating the mood on the streets outside and toying with ideas of a film script that could fetch him good money, when he had an encounter that was to leave a lasting impression on him. Shahid Latif, an acquaintance from Manto's brief days at Aligarh, and also a writer in his own right, walked in with his wife, Ismat Chugtai. Her scandalous short story, Lehaf, quilt about sexual relations between women, had been published a month earlier in Ahmeduddin Qasmi's Adbe Latif. Manto read the story while he was still at All India Radio. And he liked it very much, but told Krishan Chandra that its last sentence ought to have been deleted by Qasmi, since it showed a lack of craft. The objectionable final line read, "Even if someone gave me a lakh of rupees, I won't tell anyone what I saw when the quilt was lifted by an inch." The ever-observant Manto recalled meeting an understated woman, her sharp eyes sparkling behind thick-rimmed glasses and cheeks dimpling at the barest of smiles. Ismat was dressed in a simple white sari with a small border, a tight-fitting black and white striped blouse, wearing flat brown sandals and carrying a small handbag. "I liked your story," he said, But why did you ruin it with the utterless, pointless last line? What's wrong with that sentence? Ismat asked, a little taken aback. He kept quiet after seeing the embarrassed look on her face, much like any ordinary young woman who had heard something unutterable. The ultimate shock for Manto came when Ismat said she regretted writing Lehaf, as it had caused her endless trouble and did not think it was a literary classic. As she got up to leave, a disappointed Manto told himself, the wretch, she turned out to be a woman after all. Manto was a very sweet man, not at all vulgar-minded, Ismat reminisced several years later. He was very sweet-looking, innocent like a saint, she contended. Whenever she said that, Manto retorted, I'm not a saint, I'm a very bad man. On the day of her initial meeting, Ismat had struggled to overcome her nervousness about meeting the renowned short story writer. The initial formalities soon made way for a surreal familiarity. She felt as if they had known each other since childhood. They argued, agreed and disagreed strongly, liked each other intensely, and became friends for life. Manto took to calling Ismat sister, and she reciprocated by referring to him as brother. Circumstances brought them closer together than they might have wanted after they were both arrested under the same colonial obscenity law. This was Manto's third time being charged with obscenity. It was Ismat's first brush with the law. The arrest turned out to be illegal since no warrant had been issued, but they did have to appear before the Lahore District Court and were not acquitted until June 1946. Accompanied by their spouses, Manto and Ismat made the best of a bad situation and had a blast in Lahore, where they were feted and hailed as celebrities both within and outside the court. The crowning moment of their two trips to Lahore for the court case was a mandatory visit to a shoe shop specializing in handcrafted Mughal footwear, where they each bought about a dozen pairs on each occasion. Even the fiercely independent-minded Ismat could not resist meekly emulating Manto's highly developed fetish for shoes. What brought Manto and Ismat closer together was the cosmopolitan cultural and intellectual milieu of Bombay, in which they both struggled to succeed as writers, even while lending it their own distinctive coloring. End February and early March, as you all know, is the time for cavalting with abandon during Holi. At that time, Manto's film script, Chal Chal Re Naujawan, starring Ashok Kumar and Asim Bano, was being shot at Filmistan. On the day of Holi, Manto was sitting drinking with Shahid Latif on the balcony of Ismat's flat in Malad when they heard a commotion outside. A group of Filmistan employees carrying colorful coloring gear and in a serious mood to party was at the gate. S. Mukherjee, the producer of Chal Chal Re Naujawan, was in the lead with his colorful, cheerful and pudgy wife, Ashok Kumar's sister, marshalling the women's folk. After protesting the intrusion momentarily, Ismat changed her mind and along with Safia, his wife, joined the festivities. They started marching towards Naseem Bano's house, spraying all and sundry on the road with blue, yellow, red, green and black colored powder and dyes. Looking a sight with her face and eyeglasses stained with psychedelic colors, Ismat was now the ringleader, her voice booming with a military commander's confidence. Makeup in a lovely light-colored sari. Somebody suggested she go and change. No sooner had Naseem Bano wanted Swaraj, and so did the Muslim League. But both have separate ways and do not work together because temple and mosque have nothing in common. Manto's personal friendships were another important source of comfort during these trying times, most famously with two of Bombay's top, Kumar, whom he referred to affectionately as Dada Mani. As their relationship grew more intimate, their wives became good friends, which he wrote the script and made his debut acting as a shell-shocked soldier. The film was a commercial success and won him critical acclaim. Yet at Filmistan, Manto felt slighted and let down by half-educated producers and directors who made nonsense of his film scripts and made him write dialogues that he felt below his dignity to write. When a film with the Bombay film industry for the much smaller market in Lahore, Ashok Kumar, who had already quit Filmistan for Bombay talkies, persuaded him to join as well. And so, on August 50, a sensitive and moving sketch, Murli Ki Dhun, literally the sound of Krishna's flute, in the collection Ganje Farishte, or Bald Angels, Manto writes with affection about his very dear friend, the actor Shyam, who died tragically in April 19, because it was here that he had spent 12 years of his life, which included his most difficult, happiest and most memorable times. Bombay was where I forged lasting friendships, that I took. It was the same Shyam, full of smiles and laughter, but now he was a superstar. They both ran and embraced each other. There was such commotion and so much talk about that they both struggled to find in her mid-30s, requesting Manto's comment on her novel Pinjar, about a beautiful young Hindu woman who was abducted by a Muslim. 18th January 1955, after a stormy life lasting a mere 42 years, 8 months and 4 days, he was declared on the tablet of time. It remains to be seen